Don't Give Up Your Day Job, a local musician's guide. By me, Paul Gillings. An educational and sometimes humorous look at what it's like to be part of the local music scene. So DIY musicians, like me, get awfully frustrated by doing their own promotion. Doing promotion at all, it's a pain in my arse. Having to contact venues, having to contact places to get my poster up or to design my own posters. I'm lucky enough to be a graphic designer. But what if you're not? What if there was some promotional company out there that you could contact or were doing this? And why would they start one? Are they mad? But I'm really, because it seems like a whole lot of hard work to me. But I'm very pleased to have that I've got a promotion company or a member of the promotion company, Culture Vulture Promotions, with me to tell me all about that stuff and a lot more. Mr. Ben Hampton. Hello, Ben.
Hello.
Thanks for coming over, mate. How are you?
I'm all right.
Now you found the venue or found where I was. It's a long old road, isn't it?
It is, from the train station to here. So.
You're nearly 100 doors out, but
I got to pop into KFC on the way, so it was all right.
that was an added bonus. So yeah, Culture Vulture Promotions. Now, I first heard of you guys when I was tagged in a post. You were looking for acts to support Chris Helm of the Seahorses, who is an absolute hero of mine, and Nigel Clark from Dodgy, also exceedingly talented 90s singer-songwriter and band member. And our mutual friend Raoul Crane tagged me and my duo with Danny R in that. And we snagged a gig with you guys, and that's the first I'd heard of you. And sort of searching through your social media, it looked like a fairly new account. So what is Culture Vulture Promotions? I know that's a big question, but how long have you been going for? What's the idea?
Well, I got involved in February of this year, and I don't think there had been no gigs before I got involved.
Right.
Basically, Ben. It's me, Ben.
Yeah.
It's Ben Stone,
Ben Stone,
and Matt, who. Surname I'm not quite sure about. I don't really know Matt. Matt is I've met him once because we did a charity gig in Kent, which is where he's based. So
right,
he kind of deals with things at that end, and then me and Ben are kind of dealing with things in this area. But Ben contacted me because he was starting up this new social enterprise with the idea being that money would be raised through gigs and events. And that money would then be kind of siphoned back into projects like masterclasses and stuff where kind of people who are musicians or DJs or whatever would come in and work with kids who were maybe not necessarily engaging so much with education or work. He's got some other social enterprises where he works with school-age kids. This one's kind of more aimed at slightly older kids.
So you're quite socially conscious because you work with homeless people currently, don't you?
Yeah, I work with homeless people, and Ben works in schools. He's worked with homeless people in the past. He's been working in charities for years. He's usually quite negative about councils. I work
with good reason. I mean, you're based in the Great Yarmouth area, Great Yarmouth Lowestoft, and you're from Norwich.
Well, I'm from Yarmouth. I live in Norwich at the moment.
But it's mainly working in and around Yarmouth. And
yeah, well,
we've
got gigs in Yarmouth. We've got gigs in Norwich. We've had one in Kent and Chatham. We've got some lined up in Camden. Right. So we're not kind of limiting ourselves for where the events are. When it comes to the actual projects, they're probably going to be more kind of local based.
So what's the difference between the projects and the gigs then? So gigs are obviously gigs featuring musicians, and I take it that's from just sort of yourself and Mr. Stone have a particular love of music and stuff like that?
Yeah, me, Matt and Ben are really into music. And to be honest with you, when he told me he was doing this, I thought, well, you're mental.
Well, yeah, any promotion company know what promotion takes. I think you're mental as well. Yeah. But I'm so glad that you're doing it.
It's more than anything, it was the time that we're choosing to do it in. The kind of post-COVID, not really sure how any business is doing. But ultimately, I think I got involved through the graphic design side of things. So I'm a kind of qualified graphic designer, and he needed some posters doing. And then he started asking me about local bands and if I knew any of them, and I did. So I was like, well, I can contact some people about gigs. And it kind of just went from there to the point where he said, actually, involved enough in this for you to be put down as being one of the directors as well.
Oh, wow, okay.
So
have you got a love and a history of the local music scene around this way then?
Yes. When I was a teenager, I used to go. Do you know Turnstone?
Yes,
Yeah,
of
so I
course.
used to go.
Yeah, John Peach is playing there the weekend.
Not the Turnstone.
Oh, not the Turnstone. What are we talking
The
about?
band Turnstone.
Oh, yes. Yes, I know them as well.
They kind of have become distant son. They kind of changed.
Yeah, they
members
played
have left
down.
and come back.
They played near me quite a lot
Yeah.
as well. They played down the road here at the thing. Yeah.
So when they were Turnstone and Guy Nottage was their singer, I was friends with Guy and I used to go see them all the time. I used to go to see Battle of the Bands in Yarmouth every week when I was a teenager and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I moved away and kind of got out of it a bit, and then I came back. And it's interesting that some of the people who are still involved, like John Peach, are still involved, and all those people are kind of still around doing different things. So John Peach must have had about 20 bands. There was a rumour when I was a teenager because when the old Tesco's closed down, someone had spray painted Kenley's padlock on the boarded up shop,
right?
And a rumour had gone round that it was me that did it. I have no idea why.
Is that a name of one of John's bands?
It was John's band at the time. It wasn't me. It was a member of one of John's band. But for some reason, Chinese whispers, it ended up being me that had done it.
Well, I'm sad enough to say that I remember when they built that Tesco, and then was disheartened when it turned into a bingo palace for a while as well. I don't know what it is now, but an interesting place, the Yarmouth music scene. I was quite active around there because they had quite a blues scene as well in the Lady Haven and stuff like that in the sort of late 80s and early 90s. So yeah, big music fan, and mates with Ben. And sort of like let's do this. Why did you say yes? Is it just for you wanted to help, or was it just because you wanted to be involved in music?
Essentially, it was the opportunity to get some free gigs to go to. That was because the first one he planned was I think it was the one where the Gulps, who were managed by Alan McGee, and Alan McGee doing the DJ set.
The Alan McGee. The Alan McGee.
So I was like, if I didn't even have to design his poster, it was like, well, I'm going to get to meet Alan McGee for nothing. Sadly for Ben, he didn't get to do it for nothing. That cost him quite a lot of money.
So how are you getting? I mean, there's some big names on there, and Alan McGee is a big name. Does somebody have an in with those people? Like I say, the gig that I supported, Chris Helm and Nigel Clark. Does somebody have a connection with those, or do you just make a list of who do we want involved here, who do we love?
I think
let's get them.
If we ignore the Gulps, because that was a bit of an error, I think, of judgment in that thinking that. Because obviously Alan McGee's a legend, but how much of a pull is he as an act himself?
This is true.
And the Gulps are brilliant, but they are kind of brand new and maybe a bit too underground for what we were doing. But other than that, I kind of feel like it's just a case of we know what we like and what we'd like to see. So we've kind of gone down that route. Ben's put on some gigs before, so he's when one of his previous charities, he kind of did a few kind of tribute band kind of gigs.
Oh yeah.
But essentially, bands, especially bands like or acts like Nigel and Chris, who aren't necessarily touring as such and touring an album. It's just a case of if you approach them or their management and say, we'll pay the fee.
Yeah. I see, now I follow both of them, so I didn't even realise they were still active. Yeah. I noticed that Chris is sort of doing quite a lot of acoustic events at the moment now.
Yeah, and they work quite a lot together. So with that side of things, it is a case of, book them and they'll come. What we really want to do is try and make it more youth-focused and youth-led.
Right.
Because it's not really about us getting to see our kind of
and like you say, a not for profit as well. And so, Great Yarmouth. I mean, it's my hometown.
Yeah.
I was born there, lived there till I was 14, and I was part of a social outreach project called Harpstart that aimed to teach harmonica to children, or to keep them off the streets and stuff like that. And it was successful to a degree until the sort of early 90s hit, and the harmonica was probably the most unfashionable thing to be playing in the world. But at one point there was about 40-50 of us and stuff like that. So and Yarmouth does need something for kids to do. It's very dry. Of these and any of these seaside towns, loving them as I do, and still live in a seaside town, and Lowestoft has a bit of a social problem as far as that goes, where there's nothing to do. where there is just no thing. If you're between the ages of, up to the age of 12, 13, and things might be a bit different lately with pandemic, but there's stuff to do around the house and around the home. And at 12, 13, so you suddenly hit this age whereby you don't want to be at home watching TV with mum and dad and going to bed at 9:30 because it's boring, do you? And all right, we have video games and stuff like that, but you say that kind of thing doesn't interest you. What is there for the youth? And I take it that's the stage you're trying to get to there, is it? Sort of give them a fact that, look, there is more to life. Yeah. There really is, and you can be involved in this if you want to be.
Yeah. I just want to say that it's not necessarily that it's not for profit. Sure. It's a social enterprise. It's not a charity, so we do make money. Well, the aim is that we will make money, but it's kind of business for good. So,
sure. I mean, you're on a podcast called "Don't Give Up Your Day Job." Yeah. So we know that these things are tough to make money out of.
Yes. And we can talk about me not giving up my day job in a bit. I think that might be relevant. But basically what we've noticed is that there are lots of really good things that happen in Yarmouth, for example, and in Lowestoft. Yarmouth's got a lot of stuff to do with circus skills and the kind of out there festival stuff. Yeah. And it's all great and it's all very well received by the public, but it doesn't necessarily tap into those teenagers and young adults who are hanging around outside McDonald's, and it's it is about offering people something else. So I know of a recent survey that's been done by someone that Ben knows, and the thing that came up time and time again was music. Not necessarily kind of performing, but kind of there aren't any gigs here, and the gigs that are here are local bands playing in pubs, which people might not necessarily go to. So what's really good is if we do stuff like the Nigel and Chris stuff, is we can put them on and then put on local bands as support, so people see these bands that they might previously have ignored. The other thing is that we've now got a working relationship with the Access Creative College in Norwich. Used to be Access to Music, so we'll hopefully work a lot more with them, being able to offer the kind of people that are doing the course gigs, offering them the opportunity. Well, I'll just say this now. The thing about what I said about kind of giving up the day job, I've submitted an application form and paid a fee to get my own venue.
Awesome.
So me and Ben will be running a venue. I'll be the one giving up my day job.
Wow.
To run it if we get it. So it is sort of in the works, but there's nothing that we can guarantee at the moment. If we don't get it, we'll probably carry on looking.
Because I think a venue, like especially around here, probably anybody that listens to this podcast on a regular basis, I'm not sure how many days, probably tire of myself and other sort of older musicians, not so much the young guys, going on about a venue called the Brewery over in Alton Broad. Now that was a central hub, where if you went to, you knew that there would be like-minded youths, and I went there from the age of about 18, 19 up until my mid-20s, which I guess is the youth age range as well. Yeah. You go there any night of the week, they're going to be like-minded people who who are into music or into the same sort of things as you, and there will be a band on. There will be a band on, or there'll be a vinyl night, or there'll be a DJ that playing a kind of stuff that maybe you won't like it, maybe you'll have your mind broadened by listening to it, But I think a centralised venue, a place that we know we go there and there's going to be good stuff happening, could be really awesome. And has been really awesome,
So that's what we want to do. We part of what we're learning is, and this comes from us being total novices, really, is that there is money to be made in promoting events, but you're getting a sliver of that, really. Because you have to pay the bands, you have to pay to rent the venue.
You have to pay the bands. Now, I just want to stop you there, because not everybody thinks that is an important thing to do. No. And but I'm really glad that you're leading it, because art is work, right?
Exactly. And so there are obviously occasions like when you're paying established acts a lot of money, and the chance of you making a profit off the gig itself is probably quite slim.
Sure.
That's one thing, but to kind of say, we've got our own venue now, come and play, and we're not going to give you any money is ridiculous, because the whole point is you're putting those bands on in a hope that people will come to your venue. So no, people do need to be paid. I think there's a lot to talk about in terms of that, because I do think that sometimes there is an expectation of getting paid when you're really new, or you have absolutely no pull whatsoever.
Oh, absolutely. Danny and I don't have much of a local following, so we don't expect to get paid. If we play anywhere else, we ask for expenses.
Yeah.
You know, really, if you want, you know, we don't want to be out of pocket, so we'll, you know, 50, 60 quid petrol will do us lovely. Not everyone, so here the bookings come, we'll play, but you know, we might not fill a local venue or a local pub. We might fill a music venue, but a local pub wants to hear, I guess they want to hear covers and stuff like that, and we don't do that, so we're not going to please that local audience in a way. So no, our expectations are low. However, you know, we build a local following, and there are bands that will absolutely ram places.
Yeah.
And so that's why venues hire them, right?
Yeah. And I do think that that's the kind of attitude you need to change, because if you go to Norwich, maybe not every day of the week, but if you go to Voodoo Daddies, for example, they'll have original music on.
But that's becoming a hub. Voodoo Daddies, for people that like music, go there to see good music, right?
Yeah, and it's not. And we've done gigs there. And we've done a gig in Poco Loco in Chatham, and we're basically trying to kind of take what they're doing, scale it down slightly, because the town's poorer, there probably isn't necessarily.
Well, it's quite literally less people in it.
Exactly. So you kind of need to scale it down a bit, but we kind of want to do that. We want to do what they're doing. Norwich isn't so far away that the bands that kind of make up that scene can't come here.
It's travelable, isn't it? Yeah, definitely.
I've spoken to people that have never played Lowestoft,
right?
So it will give them an opportunity to, and you know, I think it's good. And Lowestoft's clearly on the up. There's clearly things happening. So the East Point Pavilion, or whatever it's called.
Yeah, there's the Grit Arts Centre as well.
Yeah,
You've had a Boys Down Arts in the old town hall as well. I've not had a look yet. How's it going down there?
I don't know that they've actually had their first proper music event yet, but they have opened, and they've done like because it's a kind of multi-use facility, and I know they've got a festival on, which is kind of a guitar-based festival. And
I've seen that like said, but I didn't see a date on it. It said coming soon, and I saw it by accident.
Yeah.
I thought, well, if there's a guitar festival in my own town, I want to know about it. So I don't know if they need to up there, because what I have to say is that you boys are very present. Like, there's no real avoiding the fact that you've got a gig on, which is great, because what you want from a promotional company, and you have to be in people's faces. I think these days with social media,
you've got to basically.
But you can't do
all of the social medias, and you've got to. But social media only gets you so far, and I will
say
that.
That's interesting. So how do you do the rest of your promotion then?
Unsuccessfully. I think you still need to do
with a sense of humour, but
you can't worry too much about it, or you'd just never do it. You'd have given up after the first event. And I think with any sort of new venture, you're going to have difficult times in the beginning.
I think people worry that they're getting involved with something that might fail. And I think just like this podcast, and just like your Culture Vulture there, you've just got to take a chance. You've just got to get stuck in and do it with all your heart. You can't half-arse it, and you're clearly not with the amount of promotion you're doing there.
Well, I kind of feel a little bit like, you know, not to get too deep, but I kind of feel like with my mum passing away kind of a couple of years ago, and me getting older, and just sort of thinking, what have I achieved? I can.
Oh wow! Now I think this is interesting, you know. And sorry to interrupt, but I want you to carry on. But this is something, this personal journey I've been on for myself with a midlife. I call it, or I've learned to call it, my midlife slump.
Yeah.
Whereby, when I was a youngster, I was quite successful musically, and then I got married and had children, which was still really nice and really great. But then I didn't make it in my graphic design career, and I kind of then I got divorced, and then I lost my house, and it's kind of like, oh my God, is this it now? Is this all there is? I was like 35, 36 years old, and then up to the age of 40 was like, what am I doing? Yeah. Kind of drifting and going, I had it all, and now I've got back all. But now I feel like my life is just turning up there at the bottom bit, and things are starting to go well. And the fact that, you haven't, I don't know, become the president of the known universe
Yeah.
or any of those high expectations and standards we have on himself. It's no big deal because you're a success within yourself, aren't you?
Yeah. So like what I said about me and Ben and Matt being really into our music, we are, but we're completely talentless in terms of, we would have all loved to have been in bands. I'm sure.
That made me laugh. You sent me a message, said probably the two, because Mr. Stone was supposed to join us today about car trouble, what with Standard, bless him, unlucky Alf. Said the two least talented people you've had on your show. But I think promotion is a talent within itself.
Yeah.
None of us guys are musicians can bloody do it. We're too busy trying to learn and play our instruments.
Yeah,
Write songs.
But at the moment we're learning to promote. We've had,
Okay.
I think you could say that I think we've created a bit of a buzz locally. We haven't made loads of money, but I don't think we expected to. Like things like getting Alan McGee and getting the kind of guys from Seahorses and Dodgy is more of a statement than anything else. It's more of a, take notice of us. Like
it did make a lot of people take notice. I mean, apart, there are obviously elements, when I went to work and I said I was supporting Chris Helm from the Seahorses, and who? But they can kiss my ass because he's my hero and they were great. But those that matter were like, we're well impressed. There's big names.
And I think they're Seahorses and probably more so Dodgy are the kind of band where even if you don't think you know songs by them, you probably know.
As the minute I sang the first line, the first thing people would say is, "Okay, stop." The second thing they would say is, "Oh, I know who you mean." I
think the thing with those two is between them they had 8 top 20 singles back when having top 20 singles was a big deal.
I'll tell you what was interesting about that gig for me most of all, apart from meeting your hero and I got all starstruck and asked him to sign my CD and everything, because I took over my Seahorses CDs from 25 years ago. I don't know if he was impressed or perhaps what I was just weird. But what you don't get when you see bands of that era is, I don't know if we take it for granted or it was anything I thought about too much, but the musicianship of Nigel Clark from Dodgy and those songs that he wrote, and the Seahorses, obviously John Squire, huge talent, but I never gave any credence to Chris as a musician and a songwriter, and Nigel as a musician. Nigel was all over that guitar. He was doing things that I would never be able to do, and the same with Chris there. Just incredible chord structures they were throwing together and embellishments in the middle of it as well. You could hear the whole song, the whole arrangement in there, and that for me was absolute top of the night, seeing these guys stripped down acoustic and being fabulous at their craft.
Oh yeah, and I don't think you stick around for 25, 30 years if you're no good.
There is that,
The thing that I find really interesting about Nigel is his solo album, I think, is up there with everything else that he's done, probably better,
yes,
or at least more my taste. But then you look at things like Spotify and you see that Dodgy get 250,000 listens every month. So they've got 250,000 people listening to them every month.
Yeah.
And his solo work has about 40.
Yeah.
And I can't if someone from a band that I like. So if Rob Dickinson from Catherine Wheel decided that he was...
Wheel. I'm so glad someone had finally bought them up. Oh my God. I've only been doing a podcast about the local music scene. It's the first time someone's bought up Catherine Wheel. What a band.
Oh yeah,
What a band.
I mentioned to you before we started that I'd been on a radio show recently, and it was a radio show that's hosted by a local councillor in Great Yarmouth, and I have been nagging him to get a blue plaque for Catherine Wheel, because we don't celebrate the local music scene enough.
Who was it Neil, the drummer? And he lived in Lowestoft, because I think Rob did eventually as well. Yeah. But Neil was involved over with Paul Johnson and Summer Leighton and that scene and stuff like that. And Neil was just a super nice guy. He had a lock-up over Yarmouth. He was very generous with and let other bands practice and use his gear and stuff like that. And some of the stories that, the bands that they supported and stuff like that, and bands that they were the forerunner to as well. I mean, he remembers a young Supergrass and a young Ocean Colour scene and stuff like that. And they asked, I think he was telling me a story about how the guy from Supergrass asked if he could borrow his drums, because basically the guy in Supergrass just had literally pots and pans kind of crap. So they were legends way before the Darkness or anybody like that from around this way.
Exactly.
So thanks for mentioning them, man. That was awesome. It's great.
But if Rob was to decide that he was going to come out of retirement and stop tinkering with cars and release
is that what he's up to?
and release a new album, I'd know about it and I'd listen to it. And then if it was good, I'd listen to it over and over. But so I don't really understand why there hasn't been this crossover from people who like Dodgy enough to listen to Dodgy to listen to Nigel.
Do you think it's genuine Dodgy fans that are giving those numbers up? I mean,
I think there must be more than 40 Dodgy fans.
No, but I mean, the people that are listening to the Dodgy songs, do you genuinely think that those are Dodgy fans, or do you think people that are just listening to Good Enough because they heard?
Oh yeah, there'll be people. There'll be a lot of people who are listening to like whatever the most recent.
Yeah, over and over, and that's
there'll be like a Britpop playlist.
Do you know my favourite track that he played that night at the St George's Theatre? My favourite track was the Tom Waits cover he played. It was absolutely stunning. It wasn't even one of his own numbers, but he was all over that fretboard. His voice was incredible. And you just tell that he loves music. It's again that thing of repertoire. He'd obviously collected over the years so many songs that he loved playing, and just shared something that he loved with us. And I thought that was real. It was very intimate. I mean, the other thing was I was quite amazed by the St George's Theatre in Great Yarmouth, because the last time I played there. So the gig was early March, wasn't it? When did we come and play for you? And the last time I was there, I played in there was 1996, I think, and it was quite derelict.
Yeah,
it was quite derelict. The ceiling was kind of black, and there was lots of RSJs and stuff like that around, and it's supports and stuff. You know,
it's a brilliant venue, and Chris was very impressed and was keen to.
It's beautiful now. All the wood has been rebuilt and restored and stuff like that. It's a gorgeous venue. So I'm looking forward. You got many other planned in there?
I don't know that we do actually.
So this is just heading towards your own venue at the moment.
Well, what it is that it's not necessarily cheap. And if we were to get everyone who was at the Nigel and Chris gig, and we were to put Nigel and Chris into our venue, which. Basically,
are you allowed to tell us what the venue is? No worries if not, but I'm just so excited that there's going to be a main venue. That's all. If you don't want to tell us, and you want to keep it secret times, that's fine. I understand. Well, tell me after.
I won't say, but only through some desire to not jinx it. I don't want to say we've got.
Enough,
I don't want to get people's hopes up.
But has it been a music venue before, or is this a new thing?
It's a pub, basically.
Okay.
It's a pub,
okay,
but it will be run slightly differently, and it's a pub that I think is actually. The shape of it and stuff is really good for that.
Cool.
Sort of thing.
There were some lovely old Art Deco pubs around Yarmouth and that kind of thing. You know, those old Lakens pubs and stuff like that are beautiful. So it's one of those. Fingers crossed. The
venue's in Lowestoft.
Oh wow, even better. Yes, just down the road for me. Fantastic. Well, you know, I'd love to come and do a live podcast from there. What an opening time. Yes, that would be
definitely. We want to be open to all those kinds of things. But if we were to take all the people that were, because we could probably have fit everyone that actually came to St George's into that pub,
right,
and it would be full.
Yeah,
rather than
looking
you
quite
having
lost.
100 people in a 400 person venue. It sold better than what I thought it was going to be honest, because we had it. Originally, we were going to have it as a kind of cabaret seating with tables, but we sold enough tickets for them to say, "Well, we can't do that. There's
need too many for that, but not enough for this." Yeah. I mean, you could look at it and say, "Oh, that was a shame that not so many people came out." But those that were there, were absolutely mesmerised.
Exactly. And what we need to do is make sure that those people come back. So it's not easy, and it's difficult.
But it was also a first venture for you boys, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was our second time there, and it was. It is tricky, and I think what we've learned is that isn't necessarily going to be the best way for making us money. And the other good thing about having a venue is that we can also use that like in the daytime for the projects that we're going to run. So if we're going to have a masterclass and have someone come in, we've been talking to some big names that I didn't think we'd have any chance of working with, to be honest.
We've created a great buzz, so I'm not surprised.
So again, like those people need to be paid, but these are the sorts of things that we can put bids in for, because they're for the community. They're not
you get Arts Council grants for that kind of thing.
We don't go to the Arts Council because we do put bids in for money. Arts Council's just a little bit monopolised by other organisations.
Right. Okay.
I'm not, there's no criticism towards anyone. There's lots of good things going on that's being done by those organisations, but. So, for example, in Yarmouth, I know that there's going to be a music venue opened. The plan is for the Ice House in Yarmouth to become like a 2,000 person
Wow.
music venue.
Jesus.
So there are people doing things, but if the Arts Council have already funded that, or funded
then
it,
it's not
they're going to
there
go, well,
for
we don't
yours.
want,
Yeah,
So,
we don't need 2 venues and blah 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 blah.
Exactly.
So you've got to find other ways of doing it. Well, mate, if there's anything that the local community around here can do, just put a show on your socials and we'll come and do. Or
yeah, well, that's what we're going to need to rely on people. But the plan is for it to be youth led, like I said, and we're going to have people from like the Creative College in Norwich come in. So instead of hiring a sound man, for example, we will give them like on the job experience, so they can send different people to us, and they can do the kind of sound engineering stuff. And there's plenty of very talented musicians there, and then a lot of the Norwich music scene are people who went there previously, like Millie Manders used to teach there. I think she might still teach there,
possibly.
And like I think the Renadines went there.
Fantastic band. We were on an event with them that our friend H ran at the Ocean Rooms just before Christmas, and they were an insanely good band.
The other thing that we're doing, because opening a venue and running events wasn't enough, so we've also decided we're going to do a record label as well.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that. Culture Vulture Records.
Yes.
Okay, because there was another little record label open up in Yarmouth as well that I may or may not be signed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's that all about? Tell me all about that.
Again, that was going to be more of a long-term thing. And then we sort of discovered someone, and we thought we want to work with them, and we don't want to miss out.
Right.
So we've got one person signed.
So how does because knowing what I know about record companies and how they used to work, and how they had a majority of them work now, as far as just being a promotional company and a radio promotional company, and not necessarily being the guys that, for example, in a nutshell, old record company would say, here's an advance, here's a development deal, we'll pay for your album, you owe us that back out of the things. That's old school. New school is you pay us, we'll promote it, or we'll do it for an exchange of your profits or stream or revenues. So how are you going to work for the artist then? What is it? What's the deal? What does a record deal with Culture Vulture look like?
I think so. It's going to look very different from artist to artist. So, for example, the artist that we've signed, Arthur Black, they are a young person who we think are incredibly talented, and we would like to kind of work with them ongoing up until someone bigger than us wants to take them, in which case we'd be like, okay, good.
Okay, so it's not a binding deal. It's not like 3 years, 10 albums, or whatever it is. Or anything
we'd probably say like, okay, we'll sign you to like a 3-album deal, but if someone comes along, we're not going to be.
I'm going to stand in your way and say, my barrister says you've got to stay.
Exactly, and what we're trying to do as well is kind of manage the acts as well as, but that depends. So this is a 17-year-old person who's never done a gig before.
Right.
So we've got them some gigs lined up. They've gone to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and busked on the street. So it's not like they're too shy to.
No, it's not. They're green or want to travel. So do you do radio promotion and stuff like that for them?
Well, at this point, they haven't actually released their album yet. So they haven't recorded their album. They're writing it. They're in America at the moment, visiting sort of their partner's family, and everything is going to kind of sort of kick off when they return. We've looked at signing a couple of other bands, one of them being the Renadines. So that is something that we need to get those 3 boys around a table and actually talk to them.
So it's an individual catered to the band. So if they're not good at getting gigs, maybe you're getting gigs. If they're not good at
but we'll also do that. We'll also
distribution and stuff like that. So things like that, getting their stuff on Spotify and on the outlets.
So that's what we'll do, and like you say, like the old-fashioned way of giving them an advance and all that.
That's gone. We know that's gone.
We're not in a financial position to give them an advance, but we probably are in a financial position to get them into a studio, record the album, get it mastered, and then once they've
you have a graphic designer in your MIPS in the shape of you, don't
exactly.
you? So the artwork stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So
great.
We've got some pretty big things lined up for Arthur, some of which we're not allowed to talk about.
Sure.
But
I'm just glad you shared that at all.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to me how record companies and how record things have changed, and how a small independent label, you know, which is what you would be, is sort of on the rise again. Just trying to help an artist on a grassroots level.
yeah, that's
you know?
the reason why we kind of decided to kind of start earlier than what we've originally thought and go with Arthur was that my friend does a vinyl night at the Triangle.
Yeah.
So me and Ben were kind of having a meeting at the Triangle, and my friend was doing his vinyl
Meeting
night.
/ beer piss up now.
Well, he doesn't really
Me
drink.
and Danny have a meeting, and it's basically, can we have 4 pints of Guinness?
Yeah. This woman approached Adrian, who was doing the vinyl night, and basically said, "My kid's a musician. Could you get her a gig?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Just speak to those two guys." So they come over, and we're like, "Okay, who's you know, can you get a kid a gig?" Well, I don't know, because I don't know your kids. So I
Yeah, it
don't
might
know.
be awful.
Exactly.
Yeah, what does he
So I
do?
was like-
Plays Peruvian nose flute, and he's
Yeah.
only got one nostril.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, yeah. What's your kid's name? They said Arthur Black. I was like, okay, we looked them up on YouTube. So they're quite popular on YouTube. So currently they stand at just over 10 million streams on YouTube.
Blimey.
158,000 subscribers, I think.
Good God.
One of their songs on Spotify just last night went over 10,000 listens.
This is Arthur Black.
Yeah, 100,000 listens.
Good God.
Yeah. So
So
we
like
saw that and we thought, well,
You're
actually,
taking a running horse already, aren't you?
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, if we were just going to be taking someone who had like a very, very local, small following, then it would be different. But Arthur Black has literally zero local following. No one around here seems to know who they are.
Well, this is literally the first I've heard of them, yeah.
But they're also relatively famous, I would say.
Yeah,
They've got like an element of...
Well, isn't that the madness of how, you know, the digital age, and you know how streaming network work these days? You can be famous everywhere but your hometown.
Exactly, it's crazy. But that isn't necessarily making them a lot of money.
No.
So it is what it is. They want to get out doing gigs, so they obviously need someone to facilitate that. So we can do that for
I guess
them.
if you can create the buzz and create the local following, because it's something else we're told, if you can do that around there, and obviously you guys are creating a noise, and if they can be on that noise, then they'll get a local following, and that expands out and out and out.
Exactly.
Is the idea,
and it's mutually beneficial because, well, obviously, if you're a record label, you will take some money from sale of records, so there's that side of it. But also, this is a young person who obviously knows how to use social media.
Yeah.
And we're you know, not ancient, but obviously at the moment, although we've got like an okay following at the moment on social media, if you actually split the people who are just people in bands who want gigs from the people who are, you know, paying customers.
I have to say, the amount of times I go to a gig or charity days or any of these all-dayers, and the audience is made up of the people in the other bands.
Yeah, that's
you know, and that's fun and all, and that's lovely. But none of those are, you know, sort of, fee-paying public. They're not buying merch. They're not sort of, you know, subscribers. They're not becoming the fans, are they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those kind of all-dayers are great. Like, we know that we've done 2 all-dayers and then like a kind of evening thing at the Brickmakers, and all to raise money for the kind of Ukraine situation.
Yeah, how was that Ukrainian gig?
Well, they've all gone really well. They've been our best gigs, but then...
Had some hell of artists step up for it. Danny and I were busy, we'd have loved to have done it, but you had some hell of it. Same like we moved out of the way for a whole bunch of really awesome acts who probably better pull than we did. So yeah, I'm glad it went well.
Yeah, they've all gone... Well, we did one in Kent, which was the most recent one, which was interesting. It was very different to the other ones, because the one in Kent, it seemed to be that there was never very many people in there, but we made more money than we did at the other ones, because people seemed to come in to see the one band and then clear off. So there was like a cycle of new
we got to
people.
admire their loyalty to their mates.
The only and you live and learn with these things. So Matt had booked some bands that were from London, so their fans or whatever, they're probably people who've come from London as well, and then
so
clear
they made
off.
a little trek there out to see them.
And then the last band we had on were one that were from London, and you know, they were on last, and there was no one left in the. There was just me and Ben basically. But you know, they were. You know, it is what it is, and ultimately it's a charity thing, and so you don't have the overheads of having to pay the bands,
right.
And places like the brickmakers are ridiculously cheap to hire.
Are they? I mean, how do you get on with the guys at the brickmakers? Does it all work okay with them? I mean, I don't know much about that venue. It seemed to be sort of, I know Charlie and that ran it for a long while, but I don't know what's sort of going on with it now.
Well, at the moment, up until the end of this year, it's run by a certain group of people, and then they've decided not to continue the lease. But in terms of what they charged, so to hire B2, which can hold, I think, 200 people.
It's a nice little venue, yeah.
As long as you don't want the sound engineer to get there early, so from 7 till close, you can have it for 30 quid.
Wow.
Which is
and you can put on your own event there, whatever you like. Yeah,
whatever
fantastic.
You like. When we did it, we paid 40 quid because we wanted it to be ready for 7, rather than, you know, everyone.
Couldn't get Mr. Howie Marsh to turn up early then.
Howie was in the other room doing another gig, and we had I think it was a girl from Access. 'Cause I think a lot of venues are using Access. Students,
I think I know the young lady you mean. Actually, she goes out as Peachy Sounds.
Oh, she
is
might
that
do.
her?
I
She did stuff for the Bowling House. Excellent upcoming sound engineer. Superb attention to detail. She sent us some live mixes of what she'd done as well. Yeah. So they're all super talented people. You know, which is what you need behind the desk and in front of the microphone, don't you? You need a whole team there, don't you? And Howie, who does the sound there, has been. Well, he must be doing that since before I was alive, I dare say, but bless him. He's a good old boy. So, yeah, well, that's good. So you got lots of other venues and bits and pieces going on. Would you encourage, I mean, anybody listening to this podcast and bands thinking, I need gigs, I need them guys to help me. Are you being contacted by bands? Is that, or would you rather rather that you contacted them? What would you?
Well, luckily Ben deals with the Instagram page, which seems to be where we get most bombarded by people. So
as soon as someone gets a whiff of a gig, all the guys like, yes, a gig, please.
And I'm all for it. You know, I kind of me and Matt look after the Facebook page because Ben quite sensibly took himself off Facebook years ago and has a better quality of life.
It's not always a fun platform. I find Facebook. I remember my teenage son looking at, because he'd always done Instagram and even some Snapchat and stuff like that. And you know, I hadn't done much Insta. But you know, he went on Facebook and he said, "Not a safe place, is it, Facebook?" And I guess, you know, I'd been on Facebook since 2007, since, you know, the start of it and stuff like that, and I got so used to it. You know, it's like one down from Twitter, from just being quite an evil place sometimes. It can be really positive. I think if you close your circle down.
Yeah, well, I try and make mine as much of an echo chamber as possible, because I know people think that that's not the best way to live, but I think actually I'm doing this in my spare time. I don't want to be bombarded with politics that I don't agree with, or
absolutely
racists or anything, or like, you can't even go on like the history of Great Yarmouth, because someone will say why is Laughing Image Corner called Laughing Image Corner, and then you just get people with different.
Well, you know, that happens to me with the harmonica forums. You know, I've been playing harmonica a fair while, and there are things I know to be, you know, true from my own experience. Know that, you know, aren't, I want to say true, but are the way that it gets played, or the way that happens, and I'll see a different opinion, and I'll message someone, and about 10 people say no, it isn't, and tell me 10 different ways why it isn't. It's like, okay, it's great that this is a great forum to exchange ideas, but it just seems to be a lot of cancelling going on, to be fair, isn't it?
What I tend to do on Facebook, if I disagree with someone, is I write out what I want to say to them, and then I delete it, and then don't say anything.
Do you know what I do? I scroll past. I just scroll by. So you got the right idea, mate. Get out there and scroll past, because it's not great for your mental health more than anything else, is it? Especially when you're trying to do something as positive as you guys are. I mean, I literally go on there to share my music now, which I like to think is a positive thing, because you know, I like to think that my music's okay, and it brings me a lot of joy, and hopefully it will somebody else. So I literally go on there, and there's lots of friends, maybe my cousins and stuff like that, going, "Oh, I want to, you know, so I can see pictures of his see how his kids are doing, because they generally love my family, and all I get is his bloody music." Well, you know, I use it for music now. I find the Instagram quite good for like a lifestyle kind of thing, sort of, you know, showing people a harmonica lifestyle and music, and, you know, playing down with you guys and stuff like that. which is again positive and a nice side of life. And you can call it social veneering. You can call it, hey man, I'm having my best life and being all show off. But
I never really understood that, because if you sat down with your granny and went through her photo album, she's not going to be saying, here are all the depressing things you did. It will just be all the good things. That's when you take pictures of stuff.
That's the best. That's the best explanation I've ever heard, man. That's spot on. Absolutely spot on. Brilliant. No, seriously, I'm laughing. It's so true. That is exactly right. Exactly right. Why would you share your misery?
Exactly.
Share your joy.
And let's face it, when people do share the misery on Facebook or Twitter, people think, "Oh, will you shut up?" We've all got our problems.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it's Arthur Black being your first sign. I'm quite excited by the Culture Vulture Records thing. You guys are really going for it. So, what else is in the pipeline for you guys? Obviously, because owning a venue, starting a record company, promoting everybody. Tell me about the Jube venue that you're quite involved with, because we're trying to get us a slot in there as well with myself and Danny. So that's in Market Gate Shopping Centre.
Yeah, kind of on the roof, I suppose.
Oh, really?
It used to be a conservative club, so I'd never been in it, but always knew it was there.
Is the entrance sort of underneath around the sides near the toilets?
Yeah, so you've got a couple of entrances. So one of them's via a lift inside Market Gates. So do you know where New Look is in Market Gates? It's getting very specific.
I haven't been in Market Gates for a long while, but obviously being from there, I spent a lot of time in there. Yeah,
in terms of like how interesting that will be for people to listen to, not very. There's a couple of entrances. I'll tell you about it later. But it's massive. Yeah. It's got like a bar area. It's then got a massive snooker hall. It's got a very big kind of gig venue.
The terrace looked lovely.
And then there's got the terrace.
In the pictures you've been sharing about on socials, it looks really nice.
So what we're doing with them at the moment is basically Bradley runs it, wants just a bit of, I don't know, probably more not local knowledge than anything else, because he's got some stuff going on there that's doing really well. So he's married, I believe, or his partner is Lithuanian. So they've had some Lithuanian acts that have pulled in a big crowd, because I suppose if you're Lithuanian, you live in Yarmouth, you haven't got a lot to do in terms of that is specifically aimed at you.
I want to see them. I didn't know about them. I want to see that. That sounds great.
So they're doing those things, but I don't necessarily know that Bradley's got a lot of knowledge of local music.
Oh, right. So did he get hold of you guys and say, can you supply me some acts?
I think Ben probably spoke to him initially when we were, because Ben,
for a man that doesn't drink, he spends an awful lot of time in pubs chatting up venue owners.
Yes, I think Ben's brother is friends with with the owner. But we wanted a venue. We wanted multiple venues for a festival. Yeah. And the Jube is one that we've kind of contacted. So I think Ben kind of got talking to him via that sort of route. And we're like, yeah, well, we can help you. We're. The thing is, what's different about me, and I assume Ben as well, is just that I don't really see music as a competition. I think that if you create a scene, many places can thrive. So there's no reason.
Yeah, and I think that sort of that egotistical, that kind of bands sitting in each other's throats has either got to end if it happened, or not surface up, because the guys I've had on this show, and this is another reason why I do this podcast, is to get everybody on our scene, Great Yarmouth, the Lowestoft, and we'll reach out to Norwich, we'll let them be in our club a little bit maybe, and love to have them renegades on, but just to get each other talking, and we can help each other out, because when I was a young man on the music scene, there was always guys, more experienced people giving you advice where to get a gig. Oh, I know you. Have you seen? There'll be an old boy in the Lady Haven. You want to try and get in a gig in so and so, mate? I'll put in a word for you. Why can't we help each other out? It's not stealing people's gigs. It's not like a finite number of gigs going about that only that particular band can do, is there? You know? So you guys are putting stuff on, like, is it every Sunday from now on?
So
or when are they starting?
So we've had a first one, which was Distant Sun.
Yeah. Rafe Garforth, excellent musician.
Very, very last minute sort of arrangement. Yeah. We've got a gap for the 5th of June.
Yeah, Danny and I can't. We're booked for 2 gigs already that day.
I think that day, because it's part of the Jubilee. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. But after that, we've got We've got Isaac Lister. We've got Tupelo Lime.
Yes, Graham Phillips is coming on the show in a couple of weeks. Yeah. Interesting guy.
You should speak to him about Twitch streaming.
Yes, and I will, definitely. Definitely. He seems a bit experienced on that
yes,
one.
I tuned into him last night, I think.
He's got another one tonight, I think. He's doing it right every day. I think he said to me he's going to come around and have a chat on a Monday night. He says, I need to be done by 8. I think that's because he's going to go home and Twitch stream.
The thing is, it's one of those revenue streams that I think he's probably discovered during lockdown because no gigs to be had. But it's just the modern way of doing things. Like, I don't really get a great deal of watching live music recorded or in that way, or like I want there to be like atmosphere and stuff, so I want to be involved, but not everyone's me, and people obviously like that sort of stuff. But yeah, we've got him kind of, we've got Josh Hyland, who does like beatboxing and stuff.
Okay, so you're not just sticking to the one genre there.
You're definitely not. No, because there's no point. There would be a point if we discovered, for example, if we do like 5 and Tupelo Lime is absolutely packed and everything else is dead, then obviously we know you go down the kind of country kind of
blues Americana stuff. Okay. So it's a big learning curve as well for you guys. Well, and it's interesting that you got to keep your eye in on stuff like that as well, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Like we did a gig in conjunction with Voodoo Daddies a few weeks ago, a band called Lazy Habits. Here we've got like a rapper and brass section, and
a rapper and a brass section.
Yeah, they've got no guitar. They've got no guitar.
Wow.
Just bassist, drummer, brass section, rapper.
Wow.
They were really good. Yeah. I'd never heard of them. Ben had never heard of them.
That's an interesting lineup, isn't it?
Yeah. But Ben at Voodoo, everyone's called Ben, which is unfortunate. Ben,
it was Ben Lever was in for a chat last night as well. It's just a week of Ben's.
Yes. So Ben at Voodoo's was really keen on getting this band, and he said, "Well, we could do it as like we could co-promote it." So we're like, "Yeah, okay, we'll go for it because you seem you know your venue and what will do well." And it didn't do particularly well.
Okay.
They were amazing. Like, I would happily pay to see them.
Yeah.
Now that I know who they are, and they are like a relatively big band, but it was a late addition to their tour. It was on a Wednesday, and so you kind of learn actually maybe Wednesdays isn't a time to fork out a lot of money for
and having no
band.
time to promote a gig either and stuff like that. Do you find that there's a time period that when you should start promoting a gig? Because some people say you should promote a gig 2 weeks before. Some people say, well, everyone's already packed their diary by that time. Have you found, even in the short amount of time you've been doing it, that there is a time period you should start promoting from?
My opinion, and who knows how many people have blocked us, but I think you start promoting as early as possible, and you keep promoting, and you ramp it up in the same way that you would do with like an album release or something.
Right.
You kind of like Liam Gallagher has an interview and tells you there's going to be an album next year, and then you get like a trickle of information. You get like a release of what the track list is, but you don't know what any of the songs are. Then you get a snippet. Then you get a single, but you probably have a 3-week lead up to the single. So you have a snippet of the single. Then you have the single. And then in the kind of week leading up to the release of the album, it goes ballistic.
So radio interview, thing and all this every day. See, as musicians, we need to, and especially DIY on the DIY scene, we need to know this. And it's good that you know that, if you're starting a record label as well, because then you can get behind the artist like that as well, and not be afraid to get on the socials there. Because I always worry that I'm pissing people off, which is why.
And it's one of those things. It's like what we were saying earlier before we started recording about people who work in sales. I think sometimes you've just got to
push it. Just shut your eyes.
Yeah, you might feel it's a lot easier to do via socials than it is kind of just going up to people in the street. Luckily, we've got some people working like as volunteers for us.
Well, I guess the more you do of it, I mean, bods like myself who believe in what you do and want to help you as well, will like and share your gigs.
Yeah.
And when that starts, it's kind of not doing the work for you, but it gives more credence to it because you're not blowing your own horn all the time. Someone else is saying, listen to these boys, check these guys out, see what they're doing over there,
Yeah, and luckily we've got these volunteers as well, and we've got some volunteers like Adrian who does the vinyl night at the Triangle. He's the least shy man you'll ever meet.
Right.
So one of the charity gigs we did at Voodoo's, he just started speaking to a couple of women on the train and told them about it, and they turned up.
Yeah. Do you know what? I always thought that about musicians did well. You know, I noticed when I was a kid that guys did well were hustlers.
Yeah.
You know, there's a guy called Harry Pitch. He played the theme tune to Last of the Summer Wine, the old TV show. And when you meet him,
that is a tune.
He was paid for his yacht and paid for his mortgage, and he up until he passed away the other year, he goes on holiday every year with it. We did do, but he was a hustler, and I got introduced to him, and he was looking over my shoulder to see if there was someone more important that he should talk to, and then that was how boys like that do it with the hustle. I've unfortunately, fortunately, for whatever, never been made of that kind of stuff. I guess in a way, I never really believed in what I was doing enough. Unfortunately, you know, with my own issues as far as that goes. But I guess sometimes it's easier to promote someone else as well, isn't it? So I guess as a promotion company, you're not promoting your company, are you?
No.
You're promoting that act.
Yeah.
You're saying, listen to this band; they're brilliant.
And our aim is to never book anyone crap, so we can always believe in what they're doing. Like, you know,
so you're selective about who you have. So bands may get in touch after listening to this podcast, but they might not get a reply.
They might not, and that is especially. Well, they probably would get a reply, but
definitely get a reply.
It's especially true of the kind of record label stuff, because there's a lot of financial investment involved in doing that.
Yeah, a lot of time investment. Isn't time the most expensive commodity that you guys have, though, more than anything else?
Oh, I don't know. I've got loads of time.
I haven't got to exchange it for some money.
I don't really do a great deal. It's strange. Like, I used to be someone who did a lot of things, and now I'm kind of find myself sort of thinking, when's Ben going to send me a message and say he needs another poster doing? But
you could always learn an instrument yourself, couldn't you? Do you play any instruments?
No, I have been in a band, but we don't need to talk about that. Yeah, that was awful, but a laugh, you know, being in a band is a laugh.
It's funny how many people, especially, you know, working in factories, the way I've done my entire life, and I guess that's where the phrase "don't give up your day job" came from for me. Those who listen to this will know this boring ass story, but you know, guys who've been, they would say, "Oh, you're in a band, are you?" "Oh yeah, I used to be in a band in college or like in school. Yeah, I played bass. Yeah, you know, no." And you'll say, "Do you play anything?" "No, I don't anymore. No, you know."
It seems strange.
Sort of leave it there.
It's like I'm no good at sticking to things that I'm not instantly okay at.
Right. Okay.
So playing a guitar,
instantly okay, not instantly brilliant.
Oh no,
instantly
no.
Okay.
But I just need to be able to be like, oh, I can hammer out Wonderwall.
Yeah.
I can, and therefore I can kind of always just go back to doing that.
Yeah.
Whereas when it's just like, actually, I've got absolutely no rhythm. Because the thing is, like, I'm into all kinds of music, and
but that's something you can develop, surely. I don't
the
believe,
thing is,
you know, that I always have natural rhythm. I think it's something I developed, and those in bands with me probably say I still haven't. But I blag it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know that's. It's one of those things. Like when I was a kid, or kind of teenager or whatever, for me it would have been like I would either be, if I could choose, I'd be either a musician, a footballer, or a wrestler.
Right.
And I've tried.
Yeah.
I'm just no good at any of them.
Well, you do seem to be good at the promotional stuff, and I'm loving what you do, Ben. Mate, we sort of got to the top of the hour there, but thank you so much for coming over and sharing everything with Culture Vulture. So I can put some links in the description as to where, you know, people can see what it is you're doing, but basically it's Culture Vulture Promotions. We can follow that on Instagram,
Facebook. It's Culture Vulture Live on Instagram and Culture Vulture Promotions on Facebook. I think we do have a Twitter and a TikTok and all that stuff as well, but I think they've been neglected somewhat. But
sure.
so Instagram's probably the main.
As it progresses, I dare say that more of those things will get more attention as you get more staff and more time and give up the day job and do all that business. But Ben, in the meantime, thank you so much for coming over, mate. It's been an absolute eye-opener, and we love the insight. And we'll see you at one of your gigs real soon.
Lovely.
Thank you, mate.
Thank you for having me.